Hi everyone, and welcome to the session today. I'm so upset we can't do all of this in person, but I'm still really excited to be here and take you through how you can drive engagement and loyalty through mapping your customer journey. But before we get started, because I know people normally drop off at the very end of this, I do just want to let everybody know that Reload Media, where I work, are actually offering free campaign audits. So if you're unsure of how your marketing campaigns are running, or you just want a second pair of eyes, feel free to visit the bit.ly link that I have in there on that first page of the presentation, and one of our team will get in touch. It's completely obligation free, and you'll get some free advice just to kind of help you kind of set up for that silly season. So let's get started today. But before we kick off, I do just want to introduce myself. So my name is Emily. At Reload, I help new businesses come up with their audience and their customer journey, and then align a marketing strategy to help achieve their business goals. So I work really closely with the operations team and the account management team to basically carefully craft a really unique strategy for any new client that's coming to Reload. I've been in the industry now for about 13 years. I've been very lucky to attend a bunch of different conferences around the world, had a lot of speaking opportunities as well. Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here today. My details are up there as well. So if you do have any questions off the back of this, please feel free to connect with me either over email or on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. So a little bit about Reload. Reload are a digital marketing agency. We have offices here in Australia, the UK and Manila, which means we're able to service clients all across the world. We have front-facing offices in each of those different locations, and we basically can do anything from a digital marketing perspective. And I know that probably sounds really broad, but I can tell you this is kind of a snapshot of all of the different kind of things that we do. So at Reload, we're able to execute a lot of strategies, but we also help with the thinking that happens before the execution. So think about things like customer journey mapping, website strategies, digital transformation for businesses, all the way through to the actual implementation of that as well. So if you ever need anything, please feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to help. And just kind of a little snapshot, I guess, of why we are speaking at the Beauty Expo this year. We have quite a number of clients, and even a few that I can't put up there because of NDAs, that we work with across the world. We really kind of understand the overall, I guess, area of beauty, and really understand the limitations that you have within advertising of things that you can and can't say. But then we also work with a lot of businesses that are across different kind of areas. So businesses that have to drive footfall, businesses that work under a franchise model. And I guess the way that we work is we really try and carefully craft that unique strategy for your business that we need to basically achieve your business goals. So today, what we're going to try and get out of this is I really want to provide you all with an overview of just the importance of customer journey mapping and how you can actually take the information from today and implement that in your business. But before we get started, just to kind of give you background, we have been speaking to the team at the Beauty Expo pretty much for this whole year, and we've been really excited to present. And previously, we had this whole idea of the customer journey mapping, and then obviously COVID hit. Now, the session that we're going to be going through today has not changed, but the importance of what we're going to be talking about has actually become even higher than it was previously. So I just want to kind of take you on that little bit of a journey and just kind of explain why this is so important. So pre-COVID, I'm sure we all had a pretty good idea of who our customer were. We knew how they engaged with us, we knew what they liked, and we probably had a really steady stream of customers coming to us. Then obviously COVID hit, and that really impacted a lot of businesses. Social distancing became the norm. Wearing face masks now have become the norm. Even a lot of service-based industries were heavily affected. They didn't even shut down for a period of time. And now we're in kind of this different stage where, you know, some places are in sort of house lockdowns and things like that. So because of this, online and e-commerce actually boomed out of necessity, purely because people couldn't go out and they couldn't see different people, or they couldn't buy their face cream from their favorite person at the shops anymore. So online became a necessity for shoppers. And because of this, a lot of businesses actually gained new customers, And then a lot of businesses also lost customers because that online experience just wasn't up to par for what they actually needed at that point. So enter now this new normal, which I'm sure is now us just kind of living alongside COVID. Fundamentally, our customers' behavior and thought process has shifted. What we think we knew about our customer prior to COVID has completely changed to what we know about them now. They're going to care more about hours that you're actually trading. Can they do an online booking? Is their health and safety going to be considered with a COVID safe plan? Are you within a certain radius of their house? So a lot of these things that previously probably didn't matter as much, people were willing to travel, they were willing to do these things, they simply cannot do that anymore. So it's really important now to take this time to reset and look at this new level of normal and how has your customer actually changed and how you can continue to change to either meet the needs of your previous customer or meet the needs of your new customer. So what we're going to be going through today is four key parts. So the first one is why we should map a customer journey and how that is actually the foundation of any kind of business strategy. The second part is where and how to start. So I'm actually going to take you through the fundamentals of mapping a customer journey and the key things that you need to consider. The third part is how to actually align digital marketing to that. So I'm going to take you through a few examples of things that you can actually implement and tactics that we've done for clients in the past, but obviously it's going to be very different for every single business that's out there. And then the fourth part is how do we encourage that next action? So what should you actually do next? So let's get started. First part here is why customer journey mapping is that foundation. But before we dive into that, I want to kind of give you an overall picture of what makes a business successful. And it kind of is broken down into this sort of 6 key, I guess, pieces of a pie. The first one is your brand and service. So people are going to connect with your brand if your brand connects with them. Again, with your service, you know, people are going to come to you and choose you over another retailer if your service is really kind of above and beyond and it really kind of connects with them. The third part is your competitive advantage. So who are you competing against in the market and how are you competing against them? It's one thing to say that your competitor is ASOS, but if you are a small boutique retailer, then that's just really disconnected. You need to figure out what role you play in the competitive landscape and how you can kind of leverage that competitiveness and your expertise. The third one, which is really important, is are you creating demand for a new item or product or service, or are you just trying to capture demand? So this really shifts, I guess, your overall business model, whether you are trying to gain awareness for something or if you are just trying to capture people that are already searching for a product or service. The fourth one is credibility and trust. So how trustworthy are you? And there's a few different signals that people look for. It comes into reviews. It can also be like Google's trust. So how many other people are pointing back to your website and how many people are talking about you? So are you a credible service provider? The fifth one is supporting business systems, and this is kind of the one that the cousin that no one talks about, but it's the systems that support everything that you do. So you need to be able to have a really good CRM system. How are you currently keeping track of all of your customers and clients, and what are kind of all the systems that are supporting your overall business, and how are they kind of talking to each other? And then the sixth one there is the touch points. So how many times are you connecting with your customer and how are you connecting with them? Is it a one-to-one? Is it a franchise model where you actually have employees that are connecting with those customers? How does that all kind of work together? And then I guess the final part, and this is at the heart of everything that you do, is your customer. Without that, you wouldn't have a business. So you really need to make sure that everything that we're kind of doing is really targeted towards that customer and their specific customer journey. But as I said before, COVID has just changed the world. So our needs and what we as consumers and even human beings actually need now has fundamentally shifted. There's a needs sort of triangle there where it kind of really looks at those different like psychological needs, physical needs. So when you think about that, it's like the need for health, and staying healthy then influences whether we can travel or go outside. So it really kind of comes into this overall hierarchy of what we actually care about now, and really what we need as consumers. And there's a few things here that I just wanted to kind of bring up is that those new consumer expectations have really changed. There's a few cool stats here that I'll just quickly touch on. So 40% of consumers now will shop online post the crisis. And this was people that would never have shopped online before. So if you have a product that is supporting a service, you really need to make sure that that is visible and you can access that online. 27% of customers are expected to shop or do more research online before actually purchasing a product. And this doesn't just come down to purchasing. This also comes down to services as well. So someone is going to do far more research than they've ever done before, which I'm sure is just crazy anyway, before they actually engage with a business. So it's really important to make sure that what they care about in that research phase and what's actually going to get them over the line to work with you is really clear in everything that you're kind of promoting across your social accounts, across your website. Make sure that what they care about and their fundamental needs are being met within that experience as well. And then a few things are changing now, even just from our physical behaviors. You know, what we're actually doing before we leave the house is completely shifted. So people are double checking, you know, store opening hours. They're making sure that there's stock availability wherever they're going. They're not wasting a trip anymore. You know, gone are the days where we would just, say, let's just go to the shops. And you go to the shops and you walk around for hours. People are in and out. And you really need to make sure that if they're coming to see you, you give them all of the information before they actually get there. And so that's really important, making sure that all of that kind of messaging and everything is really aligned to those different stages of that journey. But there is a silver lining. There's two types of customers now post-COVID. So there is the new normal shopper who is going to change the way that they shop. They're going to shop online more. They're going to research more and they're going to plan a lot more. So these actually may be some of your existing customers who have maybe shifted their behavior, or it may be new customers that you didn't have before that are now suddenly a customer of yours. Their behavior and how they're going to shop is going to be different to how that previous customer did purchase with you. But then you have this nostalgic shopper. So these are the people who are super loyal. They want to, as soon as they can, they're getting back to normal, and they'll return to their previous behaviors quite quickly. There will still be a few things that probably change slightly, but it's just really important to keep an eye on that customer behavior. And if you need to then change your marketing or your messaging or any of the stuff that goes out to those consumers, that's kind of changing when you have to. Now, there's a few things that I want to kind of go over here, and I'm not going to touch on all of them, but consumer expectations when we think about retail, these are kind of some of the things that are fundamentally changing. But I've just highlighted a few that I think are really related to the beauty industry. So the first one is that better e-com experience. So if you don't have a great e-commerce experience at the moment, really try and focus on that now. You probably have a bit of downtime, and if you do, this is a really great time to work on that e-com experience, and you can kind of tie that into that customer journey, making sure that you're kind of answering the questions that they need at each of those different stages on the website. The second one is more online content. So people are going to research more. Make sure you have the answer to whatever question they're asking. If you don't have the answer and one of your competitors does, it's likely that they're probably going to go there. The third one is that virtual experience. So this is something I've seen a lot of businesses do now, where normally it's a service base where you have to go in and you have to try on things, or I recently went wedding dress shopping, so you have to go in and try on a wedding dress. But during COVID, people couldn't do that. So how can you kind of replicate that in-store experience through virtual? So doing things like virtual consultations, even just like taking them around and showing them product, that could also be a really good way to connect with consumers when they are still in this sort of lockdown period as well. And then the fourth one, which I think is really important, it's probably a no-brainer for you guys, is just bookings and appointments. So make that super easy. Also think about that hierarchy of needs as well. So if they're really caring about health and safety, make sure that when you are booking that appointment, it's really clear that they're going to get the best COVID safe plan when they arrive, and really kind of highlight what that experience is going to be like, because they may be a bit hesitant. This may be the first time they've actually left the house, and you really want to make sure that they're kind of getting that safety, and they're really kind of you're kind of just looking after them in that moment as well. So that's kind of the summary of why we're talking about a customer journey, because it has really fundamentally shifted, and we need to make sure that whatever we're doing moving forward is answering this new customer's needs and behaviors. So the second part we're going to go into now is where and how to start actually mapping that customer journey. So the first part is, how well do you know your customer? And this is what I'm putting back to you guys. So let's actually start with your customer and how you actually define them. Is it by demographics, male, 32, married, etc.? Or is it by behaviors? So do they own their own home? Are they really into interior design? Do they, post a lot of luxury items on Pinterest boards? Did they used to travel a lot and now are they kind of stuck at home? So what are kind of the key things that you think about when you define your customer? And I think the thing here is that previously for traditional marketing, you would always go down the demographic route. So if you were trying to target, parents at home, you may target, on traditional TV, the midday show. Whereas now when you move into this digital space, you can actually really get a lot more granular, and you can start to target people based on their behavior, not just who they are. So once you've actually figured that out, and it's a really good idea just to kind of sit down with your team and map out who these people are, maybe what are their behaviors that they exhibit, and who is your target audience. And then what you want to do is basically look at how you then define those different segments. So the first part is, once you've actually mapped that, figure out who the different segments are. So is it teens, mums, and working women? Maybe you're just targeting women within that kind of bracket, and you know that they kind of sit into a few different segments. Then what you need to do is assign an importance percentage. So this could usually be the amount of revenue that you're generating. So say, for example, you know that the working mum is actually generating 80% of your revenue, whereas the teenager bracket is only generating 20%. You may also look at it in a different way, and you say, well, the working mum is the 80%, but it's actually 80% of the traffic is coming from the teenagers. So are they the ones driving the purchase from the mum? So it's really important to understand each of those different segment importance to you. And then you can kind of figure out where your focus segment should be. Once you've done that, it's really good to then understand the data that informs your customer's behavior. So as I mentioned before, if it is the teenager that's really driving that, when do they do their research? When do they then tell, hey mum, I really want this new makeup kit? When does that actual behavior start to kind of happen? And then understand your different market trends. So it might be spring fashion, it might be formal season coming up, really trying to understand what are some of those key influencing factors that come into play when you are actually thinking about that particular customer and that important segment. And how can you then figure out, I guess, what are the levers that you can potentially push and pull, and what are those outside factors that are influencing their decision? Things that are kind of beyond your control. So once you've got that, it's then really important to then actually map out this customer journey. And we break this down into 6 key different segments. So the first one is need recognition. So what kind of triggers occur within that persona that gets them to start thinking about your product or service? Are there those seasonal factors that come into play? Do you guys kind of spike just before Christmas and then it kind of dies off? And then how can you kind of be there when that kind of event or trigger actually occurs? The next part is research. So once someone knows that they need your product or service, how do they then go about their research from there? What questions do they ask? How do they then go about finding the answers to the questions? Are they asking their friends? Are they jumping on Facebook groups? How are they actually getting the information to make a decision on either a product or service before they even think about engaging with you? The next part there is alternatives. So who are you compared to? What are the actual factors that go into the comparison? Is it price? Is it location? Is it service? Is it that their friend had something done from someone and they just go back to them? Try and figure out how they actually go about making the decision. And if you are compared to multiple different brands or service providers, what are the key things that are coming into play when they do that? The fourth one then is engagement. So how does that unfold? How do they actually engage with you as a brand? Are there enough options for users to engage with you? So can they speak to you on the phone? Can they contact you on their website? Can they then reach out to you? Can they slide into your DMs? How does that actually all unfold? And are there any final objections that come up in that process? You know, do they get to a certain point and then not end up sort of working with you? So how does that kind of all unfold, and what are kind of the thoughts and feelings that go into that customer's sort of stage of that as well? The fifth one there is the post-treatment. So once they've engaged with you and once you've had the moment of connection with that particular audience, what can go wrong? How does that actually kind of come to fruition when they actually work with you? And then what do they kind of expect as the next element of working with you? How can you actually stay engaged with them? Do they want more information? Are you giving it to them freely, or are they having to ask for it? So it's really important to understand what thoughts and feelings are they actually kind of exhibiting after that moment, to then kind of continue that really good connection with your brand. And then the final one there is advocacy. So how can you create advocates for your brand? How satisfied are they as customers? And how easy is it for them to tell their friends? If they're not satisfied, how easy is it for you to get on the front foot of that? And it's really important to kind of map out each of these key stages, thinking about that consumer and that and that persona in mind, to make sure that you're really kind of targeting that key persona who's got the most amount of influence and the kind of things that they're thinking and feeling throughout that entire kind of journey as well. So I hope that makes sense so far. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump onto how you can then actually align digital to those different stages of your customer journey. So the key thing with any marketing campaign, it's broken down into 3 key steps. You want to identify their behavior, and you want to figure out where they are. So where are they when they're kind of exhibiting these different behaviors? You want to send them to a perfect location through a customized message. You want to give them the right content at the right time and send them somewhere that's going to kind of fulfill the need that they have at that point. And then you want to convert them. So help them do what's next, whether it's connect with you on Facebook, whether it's follow you on Instagram, whether it's actually email you or call you. You really want to figure out what that next step is and make sure that they're actually achieving that. So any kind of marketing campaign can be broken down into these. And you just really need to make sure that you're being specific enough that it's actually going to hit the customer at the right time with the right message. And I know this probably looks a little bit overwhelming, and it's not meant to be. It's just kind of meant to kind of highlight that when you're thinking about marketing, there's so many different places that all of these different things can fit in. You can have Google ads fitting at, all of these different stages of the journey, which is why it's so important to really map out those key stages, so that you're not kind of trying to do everything at once. You're really kind of focusing on what's actually going to get you the biggest outcome and really what's going to hit these 3 key stages. You wouldn't post a message about something on a channel that your customer's not even on. So it's really important to make sure that you know where those different kind of stages lie, and where your customer is actually engaged in those stages as well. But don't get caught up in everything. I love this kind of graph because it's kind of just highlights that if you're doing really well at the alternative engagement post-treatment stage, but you just need to top up the funnel, then just focus on the recognition and research. If you're getting a lot of people to your website, but they're not actually converting, then focus on your alternatives and engagement. If you get a lot of people in that first visit, but you know they can come back for more, then focus on the post-treatment and advocacy. Don't try and do it all. Really just focus on where you're actually going to get the biggest impact. So I'm just going to take you through a few key things that you can do at each of these different stages. So the first one is that need recognition. And a really good tactic here is thinking about Facebook. So Facebook, you can find similar audiences based on your existing database, and you can target lookalike audiences. So this can be in the form of a video if you want to. Video normally works really well. If you've created a lookalike audience, you can have a video, and then if people consume that up to a certain percentage, you can then put them into kind of a warmer bucket. Um, some of the key success metrics here would be view rates. So how many people can we get watching a video based on a certain percentage, but then also click-through rate. So how many people can we actually get clicking through the website? The thing here is that we're really wanting to target, I guess, the most relevant as possible cold audience who we haven't ever spoken to before, but they exhibit some of the same behaviors as our previous customers. The second one is research. So how can we actually, a few different tactics here include Google search. So once you actually know what people are researching, you can run Google search ads for either your product or research-based keywords. The key success metrics here are going to be click-through rate and conversion. So how can we actually get people through to the website and ideally get them to convert, but at least get them to the website and actually visible to your brand. And the reason we do this is to just really get in front of those people that are asking that immediate question. The second one there is search engine optimization. So again, content focusing on those questions and key things that they're asking at that research stage and really answering them within your content on your website. So some success metrics here would be, I guess, traffic, landing page performance, goal conversions, maybe even getting people to sign up to your email address or your email database as well. The next one there is alternatives. So let's say you've done all of these really cool campaigns and you have some people that have signed up. When they're thinking about an alternative, how can you stand out from the crowd? And a really good way to do that is actually just giving them high value content that they didn't ask for. It could be really educational. It could just be selling the benefits of working with you over another competitor. And it's basically anyone who is given the email but not converted. That's who you're really trying to reach with this one. Cool success metrics are like open rates of your emails. So are they reading it and are they engaging it? Obviously, we want them to convert. So if they then go through to that next stage, that's a really good bonus as well. And the reason we do this is because if you are compared against a bunch of different service providers or brands, you really want to make sure that you're kind of standing out. And when you map that journey, you can figure out what people care about. So make sure that you're using these kind of tactics to kind of get in front of them and tell them why they would go with you over another brand. So the next part there is just engagement. And I've actually put a few here because there's so many different ways that you can do this. But a tactic is just doing a special offer. So anyone who has kind of provided their email address or visited the website before, we really kind of want to start to target them based on what they've done. Now, if they've gotten to a certain point and then they still haven't purchased with you, try and offer some sort of special offer, whether that is an exclusive VIP night, whether it is a 10% off your first time with us, maybe it's like a money back guarantee. It could be anything. Figure out what your audience actually cares about and then try and customize a specific campaign to kind of continue to nudge them along. The next part is their post-treatment. So a few different tactics here. Obviously, Instagram and Facebook, that's a huge one for beauty. I'm guilty, always doing research on there. So how can you get people post-treatment to kind of share their experience? Really encouraging people to kind of share things on Instagram, even kind of offering some sort of reward for a for kind of content that's created by your consumers. So it could be that everyone that creates something and uses a specific hashtag goes into a draw to win a free treatment, for example. You really try and want to warm up those customers and just get them naturally posting. And then what that does is actually warms up their friends. So they just start becoming advocates for your brand. The next one there is email again. So using email to actually share informational content before they need to ask for it. I think this is really important. I've had treatments done before where I've not got the post-treatment email and I've actually had to call them. And then that kind of gives you that negative experience. You would naturally know that people need to know certain information after they've visited you. So just make sure you're kind of preempting that and sharing as much information as you possibly can. And then the final one there is advocacy. So I've just kind of popped a really cool idea in here that we've seen before, which is just like a VIP program. So how can you incentivize and reward people to constantly come back to you? Rewards are a really good one, and you can just do this on your own. You don't need to go to some fancy like rewards program, but there are ones like Loyalty Lion and Smile.io. They're both really good rewards programs that you can use. And what that does is just increases that customer lifetime value, increases repeat customers, and you build up that engaged community of people who are constantly coming to you. And you can then start to get an idea of who those actual VIP customers are and start to treat them a bit special as well. But as I said, there are a lot of different ideas out there, and it really just comes down to what you actually need for your particular clients and business. So the final stage here is how to actually encourage action and what you should do next. So basically, once you've mapped that customer journey, you've started to look at, I guess, some of those key things, it's really important to try and then understand how can you provide a better experience for your customers. Try and figure out their pain points and focus on those. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Really just figure out, well, where are they dropping off? How can I actually improve that experience for my customers? And they're going to naturally reward you anyway. So the first one is, do you provide enough content for a person to actually make a decision? Are they coming to your website and not seeing your COVID safe plan or not seeing the FAQs that they kind of need? What are those sort of common questions that are coming up? And you can even go through your emails that have come through. A really good way to do this as well is just go through your Instagram comments. If people are constantly asking the same question, get ahead of it and add it to somewhere. Where can we kind of improve the, I guess, fluidity of that whole journey? There may be some areas that they might be resisting. So how can we kind of put a stop to that? And then are you actually owning that entire journey? So if you actually work with like contractors or maybe you have freelancers that you work with, making sure that you have that cohesive journey and really align it so that you're all working towards that same customer journey rather than just you're kind of driving it and not really understanding how that second part is acting. Really making sure that you're kind of hitting all of those different touch points. The second part here is just follow up and stay up to date. The world is changing every day. So it's really important to make sure that you're staying ahead of the trends. There's a lot of coverage right now on the negative things that are happening in the world, but it's really important that you look at actual data. So there's a few kind of things that I've just popped in here. Think with Google is a really good one. It kind of just helps you understand, I guess, things that are happening, industries that are kind of booming and things like that. Google Trends is also another one as well. So if you ever want to jump in and see how things are performing, you can kind of do that. Exploding topics is another one that we've just found, which is amazing. We found that maskne, or maskne, however you want to say it, is acne that you get when you wear a face mask. And that is an exploding topic at the moment. So there's actually a whole beauty section in exploding topics that can help you kind of figure out, well, what things are on the rise, what things are kind of decreasing, and what things are kind of stabilizing out as well. And always just look at your own Google Analytics and look at your own CRM data and things like that too. The third part here I just want to kind of touch on is really just actually making sure that you're building your own database. So if you don't have a CRM system at the moment and you don't own your data, it's really important that you start to do that. Start to gather your email addresses, really start to gain insights into who your audience are. That will help you reach new customers. It will also help you personalize experience to your existing customers. And you can start to kind of predict, I think, future patterns based on the audience that you start to gather as well. So I'm going to leave you with 4 key takeaways, and these are kind of things that you can go away and start to action today. And if you didn't get anything out of this session, this should be it. So the first one is really start to know your customer journey and figure out where the gaps are lying. Don't try and reinvent the whole wheel. If you know that there's one area that you're kind of falling down, really focus on that and kind of improve that section only. The second part is really personalize your marketing, content, and creative to what your customer needs. There is no point having, teenage girls with all of their makeup on if your key customer is 35 plus. Try and focus on your exact customer and really sort of target towards them. The third one is just focus on the channels that your customer spends time. So just actually look at that customer journey, figure out those different touch points and where they actually sit from a digital perspective, and just focus on those. Don't try, as I said, don't try and cast your net too wide. Just focus on some of those key areas, whether it's Facebook, Google, or Instagram and things like that. And then the fourth part is just try and test and learn. You won't get it right the first time, but it's really good if you just start. The worst thing you can do is kind of just sit on all of the information and not actually give it a go. You don't need a lot of money to try things. So just, yeah, literally just give it a go. And if you get stuck, call an expert. We're more than happy to kind of help and provide advice. So that's actually everything I had to go through with you today. And I just want to say thank you all so much for sticking with me. I really wish I was there in Sydney to kind of take everyone through this in person. Hopefully we can do this again next year. All of my details are there. So if you do have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. And as I mentioned at the start, we are offering free digital campaign audits. So if you just want free actionable insights, a second pair of eyes on what you're doing, just to make sure you're kind of really geared up for this silly season, feel free to follow that bit.ly link that I've put in there as well. And we're more than happy to connect with everyone. So I hope you enjoyed today's session and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. And I hope I can see you all for a cocktail over the next year or so. Thanks, guys.